Now, Eskom's proposed revenue application, known as MYPD4, I've got the guy from Eskom to try to explain what exactly that means. Relating to tariffs has caused quite a bit of stir and some unhappiness. Joining us to talk a little bit about that is the Minerals Council of South Africa, and the guy who's joining us today is Hank Langenhoven. He is the Chief Economist at the Mineral Council of South Africa. Also joining us happily in the studio is Kulu Pasiwe. He is from Eskom. Thank you, Kulu, last minute for joining us on this conversation. Let me begin with you, Hank, and let me understand what you are unhappy about.
Godfrey, the main problem is the cost built into the mining sector, which this seems to be a tipping point. When we look at the cost curves, which is an international way of calculating how costly it is to produce, say, a kilogram of gold, we are anyway at a very precarious situation. We calculated that about 60% of the gold mining sector are either loss-making or in a very difficult situation. We normally talk about a marginal mine which only has about a 5% opening between its cost and its revenue. And this increase, if it's 15% over 3 years, that will push virtually the whole gold mining sector into loss-making situation.
I was about to ask you actually how many mines would be affected by that increase if it came in at that level.
To put it very crudely, there will be one mine left. There will be 20 tons of gold production left of the 140 that we have now.
What could the industry bear, Hank?
We have been talking about it. Of course, everybody wants as little as possible, but the consensus is that if it's more related to the CPI, then you see the problem is, and I think something that all of us must understand, if it's 15% over 3 years, it is actually self-defeating, because our calculations show that Eskom will lose so many mining customers who are base load customers. I mean, we buy electricity morning, noon, night, and we need it, and we can't really replace it. I mean, we are a little bit more efficient, but we can't replace it. Yeah. And if that happens, they will not be able to actually find the income that they were hoping for. As our calculation is showing that at the moment it's about 24 billion, and they were looking for about 50 billion in 3 years' time. We think they will not get at least 20 billion of that. Absolutely. Which is then self-defeating, because then Eskom has a similar problem as they have now.
Well, Kulu has been listening to you while you've been talking. Kulu, it sounds like you are actually threatened to hasten, I'll put it this way, the death of the gold mining industry, because you heard him say, if it's affected at that level, it's likely to be the end of gold mining as we know it, with one mine left.
Well, very unfortunate that we are talking about the possibilities of mines and other businesses closing down. From our end, the position that Eskom has taken is that we are also in a very difficult financial situation which requires some intervention. And one of the interventions is through a tariff adjustment, and the other one, which is unlikely, is cash injection from the shareholder, which is the government. Right. And then obviously from our operations, already we are not doing well, and we currently are almost surviving really, using or accessing the money from the markets. So
the other option, of course, you haven't mentioned, is squeezing further in terms of cost cutting to ensure that you are as lean as you can be.
In fact, we are busy with the cost cutting measures, but other measures have to be put in place, and one of the ways in which we can do so is a tariff adjustment. And I really would like to hasten to add that the tariff adjustment, people should also understand it from the context of the National Treasury announcement in 2015. At the time, and that position has not changed because government has not said anything differently. At the time, National Treasury said our prices are actually lower than where they should be. We need to move to what they called cost-reflective tariffs.
Yes.
And that's why we are asking for these adjustments of about 15% for each one of the next 3 years.
Kulu, part of the problem, I think, and part of the reason why you're getting a lot of pushback, if you like, is because these increases have been going on for a few years now. I remember when we first began talking about this, I can't even remember how many years ago that is, but it's quite a while back, and I think you were still with us in the journalism industry then, and this has been going on for a very long time, and year after year, Eskom comes back and says, can we have another increase? Now, the question I'm putting to you is this. The 15% that you guys are asking for, we have noted also over the years that you ask for 15, you get maybe 10 or 7 or 5. Is that padded so that you get beaten back to a number that still enables you to be able to be operational?
In fact, the information I have from the Eskom treasurer is that if we were to apply for a once-off tariff increase, which is going to be cost reflective.
I remember it was 33% at the beginning, if I remember correctly, when the whole rescue thing began.
Yes, so essentially we would go as far as 33% and even up to 40%. But management is cognizant of the difficulties that the whole country and especially households, poor households and businesses are going through, all of us are going through.
Yeah.
But we are saying you cannot kill one industry at the expense of the other. So we are not saying Eskom should survive at all costs at the expense of the businesses, but all of us have to have some dependencies, and that's why we are opting for a reasonable tariff increase of 50%.
Yeah, the World Bank has said Eskom is too big to fail, so we can't let you guys go down, because you go down, of course, South Africa goes down. Hank, you hear Kulu speaking about what needs to be done and also the options that are on the table and what Eskom is doing on its side to try to trim costs and ensure that it asks for as small an increase as possible. Do you have any ideas how perhaps Eskom could be rescued?
Look, we understand, like you're asking, what can we handle? We understand that there will probably be some increases, but there has to be, the shareholder will have to step in and help us in this regard. The fear that we have is that we are just, again, like you're saying, we're talking about this problem now for many years, and that we are just, like the Americans would say, kick the can down the road. And I mean, the old saying, if you do the same thing, you're going to get the same results. And the problem for the mining sector, and I mean, I'm sympathetic to what Kulu is saying. And I mean, what he's not saying, and it doesn't come up, but we work very closely with Eskom on the coal problem, and I think we are jointly starting to solve that problem. Is that we need to really get a solution to this, and the only way that we can see is that there has to be restructuring. There's been so much talk lately, and by different commentators that. It has to happen. There has to be some restructuring of either the shareholding and or other measures, because we can't go on like this. And what we particularly worried about, and I'm certain he would say the same thing, is that the credit rating agencies would say, but hang on, you've tried this before, and you're going to come back next year with the same thing. So their conclusion may be, but there is no plan.
Yeah,
I think that it's time for a serious intervention.
Yeah, Hank, you're an economist, and we've had various ideas thrown about, such as breaking up Eskom into transmission, generation, and distribution. What do you say to those ideas? Do you think they could work? And also, I worry that these ideas take time, and perhaps the time isn't there for Eskom to be able to be put through all those kind of things.
You're absolutely right. They're going to take time, and my worry is, as we understand it, by March, this thing is really coming to a head. So there has to be some other intervention. I mean, the 15% is not going to be applied in February. It's going to take some time if we know how long NERSA is taking. And you are right. I mean, the important thing I think to say is just in different words. We need to take decisions now that will help us to solve the long-term problem. We have a short-term crisis that we have to solve, and I mean, what the World Bank is saying is absolutely right. It is in all our interests that Eskom does not fail, because we then fail with it, the country fails with it. And that is the dilemma. It's a classical conflict in economics that you have to take short-term decisions that may not bring you where you want to be in the longer term. Unfortunately, we've allowed this thing to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're now at a spot where, without drastic decisions, it may very well be that us all go down the precipice.
Absolutely. I can
I'm
tell
not
you,
giving an answer.
maybe the rand could be part of our solution here, because by running that 30 cents or so that it has done, it's helping reduce the cost of servicing our Kulu's debt. Oh, no, it's not Kulu's debt, right? Eskom's debt. Let's not personalize it. Before you go, Kulu, let's talk a little bit about the other relationship that you have to manage, the unions. We have heard them saying, oh no, these ideas that are being thrown about mean there are going to be job losses and they're taken to the streets. Are there any conversations that are going on with the unions to make them understand if nothing is done, there will be no jobs to talk about?
You know, several months ago, just before the festive season, there were meetings that management had with the trade unions. That was at the time when we were releasing our interim results, essentially trying to calm some of the fears that were prevailing at the time about job cuts within Eskom, and also this issue of Eskom's privatization, as some people call it, or restructuring. But in terms of restructuring or even privatization, management was very clear to say that any decision around that matter will fall within the ambit of the shareholder, which is government, and therefore Eskom is not directly involved in terms of proactively saying we're going to restructure and do things like that. But in terms of retrenchments, management has said before and will continue to say until obviously we get a fresh mandate. The mandate that management has was to do restructuring at an executive level, which only involved around 21 people. So there were 21 people who were reporting directly to the CEO. The number has been reduced to 9, and that's where it is. The management does not have any mandate to do any retrenchments at any other level except at the senior executive
But
level.
the difficult decision is that it has to be done at the worker level as well, because I was reading somewhere and someone was telling me that when you look at the worker numbers, compare Eskom and other power operators around the world, our cost per employee, not cost, sorry, but numbers in terms of what's required to generate power, I don't know how to put it in your speak, certainly are high, and there will need to be a look at that. Isn't that part of the difficult conversation that needs to begin?
That difficult conversation, yes, and partly it was addressed, or at least it was initiated, not necessarily addressed, with the unions, where management were saying, over, say, the last 10 years or so, Eskom used to have about 33,000 people. Currently, we're sitting with 48,000. During the time when we were sitting with 33,000, that the productivity level has remained unchanged even now. So clearly something has to be done. Either we improve our productivities, but the issue of effectively reducing the numbers of people working for Eskom, especially at, I would say, general worker level, that has not been touched at all.
Absolutely. Difficult times, calling for difficult decisions. Kulu, thank you. I dare say you will have to be a regular guest at all our studios around the country. Thank you very much. And Hank, thank you for your thoughts. I hope certainly that we will not have one gold mining company surviving. I'm not going to ask you which one, because that might put you in a difficult position and say which one, whose shares should we be buying. Gentlemen, thank you. Kulu Pasiwe from Eskom as well.